I hope everyone's doing well. We are learning, this is a weekly halacha class, weekly class of Jewish law, and we're learning the laws of prayer. We're learning the Mishnah Brura. So if you have a Mishnah Brura, we are on Kuf Beis Aleph, which is 1021. And this is a class we usually have once a week at the Kollel on Wednesday nights, but now we're doing it virtually. And in addition to going to shul to pray, and we ask Hashem for what we need, and we praise Hashem, there are actually a lot of laws and a lot of details that go into the proper way to pray. And specifically now we're learning the laws of Shemona Esrei. The main part of each service, of each part of davening, is the Shemona Esrei, the silent prayer that was instituted by the Anshe Knesset Hagadolah, the men of the Great Assembly. Many of them were prophets. So it's a very, very special prayer. It's said silently, and in Shachar and Mincha it's repeated. And there are a lot of laws that apply of how one is supposed to pray and daven that prayer. So we're going to continue where we left off. And now we're learning the halachas about sitting next to somebody when they are praying. So you're in synagogue. Let's say you finish Shemona Esrei first. You finish the silent prayer, and before the chazan starts Kaddish or his repetition, there are other people davening. So the Shemona Esrei is said while standing, are you allowed to sit down near somebody who's davening? So the rule is no, you cannot sit down near somebody who's davening. However, there's going to be a lot of details and a lot of exceptions. That's what we're going to learn. And this halacha is learned out from Chana. Chana in Shmuel, in the book of Shmuel, the book of Samuel, Chana wanted to have a son, and she didn't have a son, so she went to the temple to pray. And she davened, and she had a son, Shmuel. And when she came back, when she finally had her son, she brought Shmuel to the temple and saw Eli Cohen, and she told him that I am the woman who was standing davening there. I'm the woman who was standing with you. So from that verse, the Gemara in Brachos on Lamed Aleph Amud Beis, when she said to Eli, I was the woman who was standing with you, implies that when she was standing there davening and praying, Eli was also davening. So from that we learn out that you're not allowed to sit near somebody who's davening, that you also have to stand. Now, what's interesting is that most of the laws of davening, the laws of prayer of Shemona Esrei, are actually learned out from Chana, who is interesting, is she's female. So just to all those people in the press that constantly love to accuse religious Jews of being misogynist, they can really learn the fifth parak of Brachos, and they would know that one of the most important things a Jew does is to pray. And most of the laws of prayer of Shemona Esrei are learnt out from Chana, who was a female. So I'm sure most of the people that criticize Jews for that fake accusation of being misogynist have never learned the fifth parak of Brachos, the fifth chapter of Brachos. Anyway, that was an aside. So let's start learning the halachas. We're going to learn a lot of details, but at the end, hopefully, I will summarize, and we'll hopefully get everything clear. And again, as always, Shalom, thank you for saying hi. If anyone has any questions during the shir, please feel free to message on Facebook, or you can email me after. All right, let's start. We're starting with the Shulchan Aruch. Asur leishev b'toch Daled Amos shel mispalel. It is forbidden to sit within 4 amos of someone who's praying. So if somebody is davening, one is not allowed to sit within Daled Amos of him. Now, how much is an amma? An amma, back in the day, it's a cubit. So that's from here to here. So in modern day measurements, 4 amos is approximately, according to the different opinions, it's approximately equal to about anywhere from 6 to a little over 7 feet. So one is not allowed to sit within 6 or 7 feet of somebody who is still davening their Shemona Esrei. Bein milafanav, bein min atzdadim, whether it's in front of him or on the side, ubein milachrav, the Rama adds, or whether it's behind him. Tzarech laharchik arba amos, one has to distance himself 4 amos. Vim osik bidvarim shehein mit. Okay, so fine. So again, simple halacha. Someone's davening, you finish Shemona Esrei and you want to sit down, but somebody else is still davening Shemona Esrei, you can't sit within 4 amos of him. Vim osik bidvarim shehein mit kunei hatfila. Now, if you are, let's say you're running behind, this person started Shemona Esrei and you're davening, but you're saying prayers which could be said while seated. If you are davening things which you're allowed to part of davening, even if you're just saying ezu mikoman, which is like really a preliminary part of the davening, then you don't have to distance. So you are allowed to sit close to somebody when they are davening. Now, the reason is, because what's the reason you're not allowed to sit next to somebody who is davening? because you give the appearance that here they are praying to Hashem, they are accepting upon themselves the yoke of heaven, and you reject that. You don't care about that. You don't care about accepting the yoke of heaven. So if you're sitting there davening, though, you're also davening. It's clear that you also accept the yoke of heaven. You're saying other prayers that have to be said. That could be said while sitting. But to just sit there like this, with your fingers crossed and not say anything, that doesn't look good. V'yesh matir, okay, fine. V'yesh matir be'osik b'torah afal pi she'enu mitkunei tefillah. And some say that even if you're not davening at all, you're just studying Torah, which is not part of the prayer service, even then you're allowed to sit near somebody who is davening Shmona Esrei. V'yesh misha omer dehani mili min etzad. Now there are those that say that when do we permit you to sit next to somebody who's davening when you're also davening or when you're learning Torah? That's only when you're on the side. Aval kenegdo afilu k'mala einav aser. Afilu osik b'kriya shema. However, this opinion says that if you're in front of him, then even if you're saying Shema, that doesn't help. So this opinion which says that you are allowed to daven within Dalet Amos, you're allowed to sit within 4 cubits, which is 6 to 7 feet of somebody who's davening when you are also davening or learning. That's only on the side or behind them, but not in front of them. Now, according to this opinion, why is in front of them worse? Because you're sitting in front of them and they're davening and it kind of looks like they're bowing to you. So that's like a little bit of a separate reason. So on the sides, the issue is that you're going to look like you're not accepting the yoke of heaven. But if you're sitting in front of them, then it looks like you are, that they're bowing to you. So that would be a problem. Okay, so that was the Shulchan Aruch. Now let's learn the Mishnah Berurah, and we're going to learn some more details. Asur leishev, v'gam smicha asur. Not only is it prohibited to sit, but you're also not allowed to lean. Ach smicha b'miksash iminata li'yocholam yesh l'haka b'makom adchak. However, there's 2 types of leaning we find in halacha, in general. You're leaning against, let's say, a stender or something like that. So if, when you're leaning, most of your bodily support is on the stender, that if someone would remove the stender or remove the object, you would fall down, that's one level of leaning. So that you're not allowed to do within Dalet Amos of somebody who's davening. However, if you're just like leaning on it a little bit, your arm's on it, now if someone would remove the object or the stender, you would not fall down, then that's not such a geschmacka leaning, and you're allowed to be lenient in that case in a time of pressing need. That's b'makom adchak. Okay. B'toch Dalet Amos va'afilu kishu yoshev ba'alachson dai ba'arm Amos. So it's interesting. What if we said you're not allowed to sit within Dalet Amos of somebody, 4 cubits. So is that, let's say, that's on the side and behind. Now what about a diagonal? So he says that you make a radius around them, that it's a circle. V'lo be'inin arba amos im alachson. But you don't need the the hypotenuse. That right? If you make a square around somebody of 4 amos, then the diagonal would be longer because you have to do a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and the hypotenuse is always longer than the 2 sides. So it's not like you have a square around the guy, but you have a circle. So it's Dalet Amos from wherever he is, a circle around him. V'ayim b'primigan, look at primigan, because v'chayadam imispala omid b'tzad echad medavar shehu kavua asara v'rachav arba, matulesha b'tzad hasheni, deha mafsik rishus. Now, if, let's say somebody's davening, and there's a big object between you, that it's like a set object that's always there, it's like it's like a sort of a wall in between you, and it's Dalet Amos wide, and it's 10, not Dalet Amos, it's 10 Tfachim wide, and it's 10 Tfachim tall, then you're allowed to sit down because the person is in like a different domain, right? So if you have like a little wall or a large object which is always in the room, and the person is davening on one side, you're allowed to sit on the other side. Mutuleshe b'tzad hasheni deha mafsik rishus avala'av or b'tzad hasheni after imena gavoa kol kach shelo yuchol listalik b'tzad hasheni aser. Now we didn't learn this halacha yet, but there's also a prohibition that when someone's davening, you're not allowed to go in front of him. So we just said that if there's a permanent object which interposes between you and the person davening, you could sit on the side of him. But the Mishnah Berurah says, but you still, let's say someone's davening and they have a big object in front of them, which makes it a different domain, you still shouldn't walk in front of them because that's a different reason. That will distract them. The reason for not wanting to walk in front of somebody is an additional reason, is different, that we don't want to distract somebody who's davening, so one is not allowed to do that. V'chein pasuk b'helchos katanas, v'chein mitzad prima gadim b'simen tzadi, sifkat hey, sheish l'hachmer la'avor, ba'al memra neged mispal afshu rishus b'fnei atzmo, v'leishev mata b'rishus acheres, afilu b'toch Dalet Amos. Now, let's say the bima, right? Usually, this comes up in most Orthodox shuls. You have a bima which comes up, Right? I heard Rav Elyashiv say the reason that it's called an aliyah when you go to the Torah is because you go up. That teaches you that the bima is supposed to be raised up above the rest of the place where we daven. So you have a bima, and it's usually surrounded by some sort of walls. So let's say someone's davening in the bima, you really shouldn't walk in front of them, because even though the bima is considered a separate domain, it's still distracting if you walk in front of them. However, it sounds like if they're davening in the bima, you could sit next to them. Not on the bima, because that's a different domain. Shal mispalel, va'afili mispalel omid b'tachnunim shel achar tefila kozman shelo pasa, v'hu adin le'inyan shelo la'av or neged mispalel. Now, how long do these halachas apply when someone's davening Shema Esrei? Many people add their own prayers after the Shemona Esrei. It's called tachnunim, or Elokai Nitzur, also is called, I think, tachnunim. So as long as someone hasn't taken 3 steps back yet, then one has to follow these laws about not sitting near them. Okay. Ubein mila achrav v'chein eskim achronim. Okay. Perek Ezu mekomen v'hu adinim osek b'prakim b'mincha b'Shabbos. Gam kemoto leisha b'tzalim. He's probably just saying the other prayers. If you are saying other prayers, then you could sit next to him. Yesh mater. Desfir lei delo asrucham leisha b'tzalim mispal ala kashiyoshu v'domim. The ner ki'ilu ein wrote to the Kabbalah al shmaim av kashu yeshiv v'sek b'torah. It's just what we said, that when one's learning, it doesn't look like he's rejecting. He's rejecting the yoke of heaven. So he says, practically, when learning Torah, we said that there are some opinions that are lenient to say that when one learns Torah, he could sit next to the person davening. But the Mishnah Berurah says it's good to be stringent, that if you're learning Torah, do not sit next to the person davening, but behind them you could do. So again, practically, if you're learning Torah when someone else is davening, if you don't have to, it's better not to sit next to them, but sitting behind them is fine, unless it's a time of pressing need. Now, it's this is important. All these halachas that we said that were lenient, that you can sit near somebody davening, if you are yourself or davening or learning, that's only if you are verbalizing the prayers. You have to be moving your mouth so people see that you are not rejecting Kabbalah's Ol Malchus Shemayim. You can't just be thinking Torah to yourself or thinking the davening. You actually have to verbalize the davening. It's a good thing to learn out loud and to daven out loud anyway. We learned earlier that when you daven, you have to daven out loud. Your mouth has to move. And preferably, you should actually hear the prayers. You shouldn't daven loud enough so that other people could hear you, but you should daven so that you could hear the prayers yourself. As we said, now he says, so we said one shouldn't sit in front of someone davening. What was the reason? Because it looks like you are praying. The person who's davening looks like he's bowing to you, which is bad. However, what about standing? So he says some opinions say you could even stand within Dalad Amos in front of somebody who's davening. However, some opinions aren't so thrilled about allowing you to stand within Dalad Amos of somebody davening, because you're going to distract them. It's a practical thing, you'll distract them. So in the end, he says that regarding some paskin that you're allowed to sit in front of somebody when you're davening, when that person's davening and you're saying Shema or something like that, or other parts of the davening. But there are those that are stringent. So practically, 1 second. Right. So practically, how does he come out? So let's summarize all the halachas. There are a lot of details there. So the first thing, someone's davening Shemona Esrei before you are davening or doing anything. Someone is davening Shemona Esrei and you finished. It's forbidden to sit in front of him at all, right? As far as the eye can see, you should not sit in front of him. Why? Because it looks like he'll be bowing to you. Okay. On the sides, it's forbidden, and behind, it's forbidden within Dalad Amos, which is 6 to 7 feet. Now, what if you are davening? What if you're also saying prayers, or you're learning Torah? Let's say you're saying prayers. So if you're sitting prayers, then it's permitted, and you're verbalizing the prayers with your mouth, then it's permitted to sit on the side or behind him, but you really should not sit in front of him, because again, it still looks like he's praying to you. If you are learning Torah, then it seems like we should only be lenient if you are learning Torah sitting behind him, but not on the sides if you could help it. And when it comes to standing, one should not stand in front of someone davening within Dalet Amos, but outside of Dalet Amos in front of a person, there you could stand. So I know that was a lot of details. So if anyone wants to clarify, please feel free to send me a message. But just, again, the general rules are not to sit within Dalet Amos 6 to 7 feet of somebody davening, not to sit in front of them as far as the eye can see. We are lenient in certain cases if you are also davening and saying prayers. And yeah, those are the if you're going to remember something, those, I guess those would be the general things to remember. And then when it comes to learning Torah and other things, behind him you could be lenient, on the side it's not so clear. And regarding, you shouldn't stand right in front of somebody who's davening, but you could stand in front of them if it's outside of Dalet Amos, but you shouldn't sit because it will look like they are bowing to you. And then hopefully next week we will, God willing, continue with what if a person doesn't feel well? Is there more leniencies there? And also about, are you allowed to pass in front of somebody who's davening? Right? We learned about sitting and standing near somebody who's davening, but what about walking in front of somebody davening? So we'll hopefully learn that, and hope everyone has a beautiful, cool day.